T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the Bullpen. As always, I'm James Roy, and with me is Tom Chavarria. After a long break to watch the Dynamo support a different kind of football in Houston, but Tom, good to have you back. How are you doing?
You know, I watched the show, and I'm sorry I wasn't here. I clearly should have been here because the Dynamo got taken out behind the woodshed and got absolutely wrecked. There's a lot of things going on with the Dynamo that we could definitely talk about that another time. The main event, the main course is almost ready. You know, Houston Texans football. We got training camp started. I'm ready to talk football.
I'm ready to talk football too, so let's get into it. The Texans are all there today. We got some good videos, interviews with D'Amico, Nick, CJ, Will Anderson Jr., Nico Collins. But where to begin? Let's talk about CJ. What did you, just from what we saw of him out there and what he said in his interview, how are you feeling about year 3 CJ Stroud?
I mean, I'm excited. I know I'm not worried about, maybe he had off-season shoulder surgery. I know I'm not worried about that. I think he looked pretty good. I know 2 months ago there was fears all over the place because CJ Stroud's not throwing a football. We need him to throw a football. And day one he looked good. I thought, I saw some really good clips that I'm excited. I mean, we've talked about what is Nick Haley's offense going to look like. What is CJ Stroud going to look like in this offense? And so far, it's one day, it's a handful of clips, but right now it all looks great.
I think, yeah. I mean, the clips are not much to go on, but I mean, he's looking good. My biggest takeaway from the clips is the clip of CJ evading the pocket. He's looking a little quicker. As you know, late in the season, a lot of the discussion, that we had around what was wrong with the offense, we came back to scheme and O-line mostly every time, but there was some analysis of what CJ could be doing better. And one of our takeaways, at least mine, was that he needed to more timely scrambling, not constantly looking to run the ball, but like, hey, if it's there, you got to take what the defense can give you. And we saw that in the Chiefs game a little recklessly, but more, not afraid to run the ball and take what the defense was giving him. And so to see a clip of him already just kind of escaping pressure, one, you could take it as a down point because of the offensive line, but they're not in pads. So I'm not really going to hold that against the offensive line. If he felt the need to step up and sense that pressure, I'm going to take it as a positive on CJ's end for getting out of there and doing what he needed to do to take what the defense could give him. As far as his interviews or his questions, he was asked about his expectations. He just wants to win consistently on and off the field. Interesting question I thought he was asked was about what he takes away from. It sounded like they said 2023, 2024. Maybe it was 03, 04. But I think someone referred to it as vintage Tom Brady film, and I was like, I don't know about that. But I guess it was 03, 04 because he wasn't in the league in 23 and 24. Getting CJ's take on vintage Brady film, I think, is clear that people are trying to get at what Nick Caley is going to do with this offense. D'Amico commented on it, and that'll be the next question: is how you feel about, so far what's been said about this Nick Caley offense. It felt like some shots were fired at Bobby Slowick from D'Amico with his comment about this not being, a one-trick pony, this being an offense that can adapt and adjust. But Nick, speaking to the Tom Brady question to CJ Stroud, I think it's because they're trying to get at what Nick Caley's doing, trying to get a feel for his offense due to his time in New England. But how do you feel about the remarks from D'Amico on Nick Caley? Maybe what you've gotten overall from what maybe Nick Caley's doing, and that's the question.
Well, I love the enthusiasm. I love that D'Amico's backing this guy. You can't hear the comments and not think he wasn't taking a shot at the previous offensive coordinator. It just felt too obvious. I don't know anybody on social media that didn't like immediately. What's the meme from that one movie where the guy's like pointing? Yeah. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or something like that.
Yeah. What's your name? Was it Rex? No. That scene was funny in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Like you can't see it and not go, oh, he's taking a shot. But for me, it's kind of like I'm excited and I'm like a little not concerned. Concerned's the wrong word. It's really like you are putting a bullseye. You are like, if you're saying this, he's got to come out and look the part now. So my biggest concern is that they're talking a really good game, but they're gonna have to back that up.
I agree with you, and I appreciate you, Tom, for being the voice of reason in this, because if there's anyone I've talked to who is both excited and cautious about what Nick Caley is to this Texans team, it's you. And so I'll be definitely looking to you for the voice of reason when we talk to him, because I'm just excited about Nick Caley. I've worked past every single red flag that we've driven right by, plain as day, in terms of his parallels between him and Bobby Slowick. I've justified away a lot of those in my head, but there is that it's a good point. He has to deliver on what's being said. So to take these thinly veiled shots at Bobby Slowick and talk up this offense is creating a price that they're going to have to pay in the regular season. And the question is when they swipe the card, is there going to be enough money in the account to pay the balance? And so we'll see about that. Some other people that interviewed: Will Anderson Jr. and Nico Collins. Any takeaways from those interviews on your end, or Will Anderson Jr. had a very good comment on Darnell Taylor, an underrated signing for the Texans. But other than that, I didn't really see.
I feel like those comments were pretty status quo. I think there isn't very many people that doesn't think that this defense is going to be elite and light years ahead of the offense. And they've had the time to gel and kind of build and slowly put together the team they wanted to. And that gets back to the offensive coordinator thing too. I'm really trying to like not get too ramped up on Nick Caley for the simple fact that it's year one for him. I can't get past that for me. Like, everybody's got to have those growing pains, right? Even I would say D'Amico had him with his defense, first couple of years. I think there were some things that, people felt like he could clean up. And I feel like the bar is getting set so high with Nick Caley that he's not going to be allowed any room for those errors, for those mistakes. And I don't want to do that. I want to give him the ability, because I think the defense is going to be so elite that he's going to be able to have those plays or those drives, or those series where it looks disjointed and the team's going to keep him in games. So, I mean, to speak to the interviews, I really think they said what they're supposed to say. I really feel like those guys are just chomping at the bit. I think they're going to be amazing. Nick Caserio has done a phenomenal job. Just absolutely adding players, added another corner that I think is going to be a really good add. I'm struggling with his first name, so I'm not going to murder it.
I thought it was maybe. I'm so close to seeing it on my feed because I retweeted him Yeah, it's Arthur Mullet.
Yeah, and I saw across a couple different accounts where they felt like that was a really good signing, a really good depth piece. So you just look at that defense and you just don't see a whole lot of weakness. You don't see a whole lot of deficiencies. The talking points on that defensive side of the ball is, well, what's Christian Harris going to be? And you don't even need him to be anything because they've addressed linebacker. So, I mean, if he's great, great. If he's not great, I'm sure there's going to be somebody to step in and fill that void just fine. So,
So what do you make of Christian Harris so far? I know it's not much to go on, but he's not on the physically unable to perform list, which is a really good sign. But it appears as though he didn't practice today. You would want to assume that it's injury related because of the way they distributed snaps. Do you think that maybe the Texans brought in EJ Speed to be the plug and play starter, and they're preparing for to make Christian Harris earn it or to move on without him?
well, I don't think they're going to move on without him. I think he's going to be a member of this team in 2025, 2026. Now beyond that, who knows? It's weird with Christian Harris because to me, and I've got all this Astros gear on because they're white hot, one of the best teams in baseball. And the comparison I want to make for Christian Harris kind of is Lance McCullers Jr. And we saw him not be on the field for 2 years with some mysterious forearm, elbow issue. And nobody really could figure out what was going on until way later on. And I feel like we're going to find out what's going on with Christian Harris at some point, because right now, who knows what exactly it's a calf of some sort, but I mean, it's got to be one of the most rare calf tears, strains, whatever in the history of football. It's just not an injury that you hear that takes this long to heal from. And he missed basically all of last season. And now he's not ready for this season. And it's kind of like, if I gave you a whole new calf muscle, you'd been right by now. So what's going on?
Yeah, I can't help it. Like at this point, it feels. I think the Lance McCullers comparison is a very accurate one. It just kind of feels like we're chasing. And the sad part of it is the parallel comes to mind is Lance McCullers has since returned, and when he has a good game, it's nothing because that's what everyone expects of him. And then when he has a bad game, it's like chase him out of town, as if this wasn't the guy who was repping, bury me in the H and was like repping H-Town super hard in his prime when he was throwing 24 straight curveballs. Everyone was all about him. But now that he's recovered from an injury that seems to have held him out for long enough that I question whether or not he should have even been able to recover from it. If you get 2 games from him with 6 innings of solid play, maybe 1 to none, no runs allowed, that's a miracle. I mean, I'm happy with what we get. And so I could see it being a thing where Christian Harris, he could come back and he could be Christian Harris, but the second that, and we kind of saw it last season, he came back at the end and all we heard, I mean, to be fair, I said it too, was, yeah, Christian Harris didn't really bring anything. Like he wasn't the same guy. And so forcing him back early is only setting him up for failure, because if he's not, the guy who earned the nickname Harris County, then people are going to start asking questions and the rumors have already started. Everyone's like, well, what if his trade value is good? Or maybe what if the Texans brought in EJ Speed to cut him? And so, yeah, I agree with you that it's just kind of a, let's wait and see. It is what it is. I mean, he'll be back or he won't, but I'm trying to lower my expectations in that department. I think a lot of people are going to be either disappointed or I told you so when he comes back. I mean, there's no in between. But that's a player who in a short period of time spawned. And to be fair, let's not forget that Christian Harris came in and was not lighting the world on fire his first year or two. It was when D'Amico got hired on as coach that Christian Harris all of a sudden was this superstar linebacker. And it happens, right? Especially being a fan of a team that has had so many low points, where when the team is low, you search for that one player who's like that player is doing well, and that is my only ray of hope on this team. And it was interesting to see because usually that happens when the team's bad. Christian Harris in 2023, the team took off, and I've never seen a fandom for a player take off that quickly. There's a very dedicated sect of the Texans fan base that is like, Harris County, that's my guy, and ride or die. Why would you ever want to move on from Harris County? And so I'm interested to see how it'll play out. I feel like I'm drawn in at this point, but uh,
You have to remember, D'Amico said that was one of the greatest linebackers he's ever coached.
Yeah, so the hype is the hype is validated in a way, but like I don't know. I don't want it to be this thing like Lance McCullers where it's like he comes back and everyone's like, perfect, he's back. Lance was great when he played before, so he's gonna be instantly a top rotation guy right away. To send him to the bullpen, cut him. Why are we paying this man? Like, you know, obviously we found that those threats to his home were made by some overseas bettor, but still the general, even outside of that, the online presence when talking about Lance McCullers was very volatile when he took a nosedive for a couple of starts. But we're talking about training camp, so there's some things to talk about there. Let's start with the offensive line. So I got it pulled up here. The Texans' first group that they trotted out was, oh man, did I not retweet that? I'm gonna have to go into Instagram and get it. The first group that they trotted out was Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, and Jarrett Patterson at center, which is a very drastic turn from what's pretty much been the theme all through OTAs and offseason activities. It kind of felt like Jarrett Patterson was cast to the side, or at best the number 2 center. Like they went with Jake Andrews in every lineup. So first lineup out, Jarrett Patterson gets the start at center, and then right guard Titus Howard, right tackle Ariante Ursery. So no Blake Fisher to be found. I want to start with that. So we'll talk about another lineup that they trotted out, but I think a lot of people view Blake Fisher as the right tackle, and Ursery is trying to crack the starting lineup. Do you think that in any? I think the Texans are just throwing darts at the board, but trying to see what they think could stick. Because honestly, the other lineup they tried out, I like a lot better long term. But do you think that putting Ursery out there first means anything, or were they just like, hey guys, get out there, let's get started?
No, not really. I really think that a lot of people are probably reading into this, and everybody wants to, right? Because the offensive line is like the biggest issue the Texans have. So everybody's trying to understand what they're going to do and break it down and analyze and, okay, is this good? Is this bad? When in actuality, the Texans could very well be going, okay, we have a room full of guys and we need to see what they look like. And, you talked about center, right? And Jarrett Patterson didn't see a lot of run as a starter in OTAs, but now training camp started and he's the first guy out. Well, he was starting center towards the end of last season, so it makes sense, right? Let's look at Andrews and see what he looks like, and then we'll get back to what we know. The other thing is, like, maybe they know what they have in Blake Fisher, and they don't need to see Blake Fisher at right tackle, but they do need to see all of Ursery, because there's going to be some learning, some teaching, on both ends right there. And he probably needs the reps more than Blake Fisher does, because he was a swing tackle and started some. So, that's again, what you have there, right? So I don't know that I'm going to make a ton out of what they do with the offensive line till probably game 3 of preseason. Like that's really going to be the one that's going to tell you the curtain call. That's going to say, okay, these are the guys. And, I hope that's the guys that I think are the best, group. If we get somebody that, we're not in love with, I hope they're good.
I mean, I hope so too. And I think it emphasizes a point that D'Amico made during his presser, which was he made it a point to mention, as he has before, that the O-line out of pads is not really worth assessing. So I think that gives merit to the fact that, like, as much as we will probably make a little more of what they're doing in terms of who they're putting on the field, the Texans probably, I don't want to say aren't thinking about it. Like, I think Cole Popovich, like you said, is probably like, oh, Ursary probably needs more reps. He's newer. I want to see Patterson. He was a starter last year, even though I know Jake Andrews personally. I coached him at Troy and with New England. So assessing players in that way, even without the pads on, you can get a lot. And D'Amico said, they're working on fundamentals. There's still some meaningful work being done, but it's just hard to make an assessment on what's going on with the offensive line. Then there's another lineup they tried it out, and I want to talk about this because I'll give a little elaboration on it. But the other lineup they tried out was they put Ursary at left tackle, and then they put Scruggs at left guard, and then Andrews at center, Howard at right guard, and Fisher at right tackle. I like that lineup a lot, and here's why. The other lineup, has 2 or 3 very experienced guys in Robinson, Tomlinson, and Howard. In this lineup, the one con is that Howard's the only guy who's been in the league more than like two or 3 years in that lineup. But it's youthful and it gives room for growth. These are guys that at least have 1 or 2 years left on their contract past this season, and could end up proving something. Scruggs showed pretty well at right guard. I'd be interested to see if left guard is a challenge for him or not. The only thing is I've been the biggest campaigner for Jarrett Patterson to start on this offensive line due to him showing a little more last season, in my opinion, that would warrant him maintaining a starting spot either at center or guard. But I trust me, I don't have a problem with this. And that brings up a good point. So I don't know if you remember a while back when the Texans claimed Jake Andrews. I think a lot of people took it as a nothing signing, which is what a lot of the offensive line signings were viewed as when the Texans made them, because I don't think anyone thinks the Texans have adequately addressed their offensive line. But with the connections that Andrews has to the staff, and then him in OTAs getting sent out with the first team offense right away, there's a theory going around. Another domino that fell was that the Lions center retired. And so the Texans were just ahead of the Lions on waivers when Andrews was cut. And it's thought that Caserio had caught wind of that and claimed Andrews and is prominently featuring him as a starting level center to try and leverage that to see what he can get for him, basically, which is a rare move. I've talked to before. The Texans, generally speaking, when they view a player as valuable, in terms of skill, they'll either keep them as a backup or start them. But it's very rare that they try and capitalize on the value of players themselves. So that's where the theory kind of runs out for me. What would you think? Ultimate big brain GM move. I think it cements Nick Caserio as one of the best ever if he literally claimed a guy to hold him over the Lions' head. But what do you think of that theory?
I mean, I wouldn't put anything past Nick Caserio. That dude is constantly playing chess while so many other GMs are playing checkers. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the contracts he's given out and then some of the other contracts that have coming out after him. The dude is just light years ahead of a lot of other guys. And if that's what he ended up doing, so be it. I really think he took him with the idea that, hey, we may need a backup center, and we can't afford to have someone go down and be scrambling and looking for guys that are solid pieces. I want to talk about the lineup that you put out there. I know you talked to it about being youthful and they could become something, and there's merit to that on a team that isn't primed to contend for it all. I think the answer, while it may be that first lineup that they put out there is probably somewhere in the middle. I think you have to have that good mix of veterans and trust that Cole Popovich can get the most out of them. I know that a lot of people didn't like the guys that they picked up. You spoke to how a lot of people don't feel that they addressed the offensive line aggressively enough. And I really think that in order to make the rest of the team better, you can't pay everything. You can't pay everyone. And you're going to have to, work in the margins in some places. So why they got out of the expensive left tackle, Laramie Tunsil thing, in my opinion. I think they were like, look, we can't afford to pay this guy all this money and pay all our other guys all this money. So we're going to have to be bargain shoppers and find really good value where we can. So I believe there's a scenario where 3 of the guys on that second unit are starters, and they plug in 2 vets, and it's kind of that way, right? The biggest thing, more than anything, is protecting CJ. So I don't care who's playing out of all 10 of them, as long as the 5 best ones that can protect CJ are on the field. Like, you can develop as you go and swing tackle here, swing guard or whatever. I don't know. You can rotate those guys in to get them built up, as opposed to just going, nope, opening day starter, let's go. You're the guy, and good luck. Don't mess it up.
Right. I mean, so I agree with you there. I think there's some sort of balance, at least to start the season. And then we'll probably see the Texans pivot. The big thing is putting Ursary at left tackle. To me, in that scenario, and this might shock some people, but I've talked to it before, so I don't feel like it should shock people. But the number one thing, the first thing that was said when I quote tweeted this was someone in the comments was like, so we're going to pay $14 million for Cam Robinson to be the backup, to be the swing tackle. And I said, well, I mean, I don't think in that situation you have to keep him on the roster. I think that, and I looked it up on Over the Cap, the Texans don't stand to lose a lot of cap space by just simply moving on from that deal. Is it wise to put that much money into a 1-year deal and then just throw it away? But it could be that, and then keep Trent Brown as your swing tackle at a much cheaper rate. But I'm interested to see how they, like, there's a lot of different ways this could be shuffled around. I've already spoken to how I kind of like Patterson at center. Maybe, like you said, whoever's best. I'm not going to die on the Patterson hill if Andrews is deemed best to protect CJ. But I'm particularly interested in Scruggs, who, by the way, congratulations, Juice. They just announced, him and his wife, that they're having a baby boy. They just revealed the gender, so congrats on that. But Scruggs is an interesting piece to me because a lot of the talk around him, his first 2-3 years in the league, I guess this is his 3rd year, is centered around how he is a center and that is what he plays. And while he has guard flexibility, he is truly a center, and that is how he's viewed in the organization. And so that's why, frankly, I'm a little shocked that they brought in Jake Andrews and that they've been using him and Patterson vice Scruggs. But I mean, like I said, Scruggs showed well at right guard, so I'm hopeful that he shows up. But him and, I would say, Ed Ingram are 2 guys that I'm really interested to see if they can step up. Which, speaking of, the second O-line that was trotted out with the second team in this particular drill, after they put out the youthful starting lineup, was Robinson at left tackle, Tomlinson at left guard, Patterson at center, Ingram at right guard, and Deculus, a staple in the Texans practice squad, it would seem, rounded out that lineup. Now, Trent Brown is down with an injury. I don't think he's been cleared to practice, which is probably why Deculus is in there instead of him. I'm interested to see how they do that. There's a lot of interesting things going on in terms of like who they've decided to sign. They've thrown a lot on the wall. We're gonna see what's gonna stick. But seeing Ingram step in at backup right guard, I honestly, the way they've used Laken Tomlinson, I think Laken Tomlinson's pretty much guaranteed a spot on the roster in some capacity. But I'm interested to see how they view Ed Ingram, who came in a second team capacity. But yeah, and so rolling into, I posted about it today. I figured we might as well roll into this topic as our last topic. Is there a particular training camp battle that you're looking forward to seeing play out? I've got Jake Andrews and Jarrett Patterson. That's me. I feel like I've already mentioned it, but like, to me, it's like incumbent starter who has kind of proven himself versus guy who knows the coach really well. You know how like sometimes in like football movies, the new coach comes in and they're like, well, our starting center is Jarrett Patterson, and it's like, well, no, I like Deion Sanders kind of stuff. I bring my own baggage, and it's Gucci, and he brings in his own starting center, and he turns out to be better in some way. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but that is a battle. Really, the whole O-line could be viewed as that, but I think that in particular interests me. What about you?
Well, it's really tough. I don't feel like there's a ton of battles sans the offensive line that are going to be talked about or even really, going to be battles at all. I really think that, the team is kind of set the way it is. But if there is if there is one interesting character that I'm kind of really curious what happens, it's a tight end, and it's Brevin Jordan. I really am curious to see what he looks like coming off an injury. You know, he's been on social media saying, I'm coming for it all. I think right now you got everybody kind of like, I don't want to say even, I don't know that that's fair, but I do believe that the skill set that Brevin Jordan has, you know, really puts him in contention with Dalton Schultz, just because I think he's the better blocker of the two. And they've talked about running the football. You know, he can catch the football. We've seen it. He's done it. So it's just going to be really interesting to see, you know, if he's able to garner more play time than what he was getting before. And you know, maybe that's a timeshare. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. That's if there's another position battle, that's probably it for me.
I feel you on that. I think that honestly, I could view Brevin Jordan and Dalton Schultz as 1A and 1B. And that's with me how I viewed Dalton Schultz throughout this offseason. But there's been some clips that come out, and I've spoken to it outside of just seeing a couple of clips of guys making nice catches. You know, Nick Caley coming off of being a tight ends coach. If there was ever a reason to believe that Dalton Schultz could become what the Texans, you know, and Texans fans believed he could be when he was signed and showed flashes of throughout his early time in Houston, it is the scheme fitting him and putting him in a better position to be successful, and maybe not putting him across from George Karlaftis a couple times with the game on the line as the sole blocker. So I'm interested to see that. And then I noticed they posted that clip of Brevin Jordan. And in case anyone didn't understand what I was getting at when I quoted it, the play looked really familiar. It kind of reminded me of playoff vibes in Houston. It looked a little bit like the last big play that Brevin Jordan made in that Cleveland Browns game. So also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this and say that it was a joke, because I didn't say it was a joke. I thought it was a little ridiculous to begin with when I tweeted it. But the Texans, you know, the Bullpen is not one of the top 100 podcasts of all time. As much as I would like to believe it is, since I think we produce a high quality Texans podcast, Time did not name the Bullpen.
I totally retweeted it. I don't know what you're talking about. I am running with that until I can't run with it anymore.
My editing job on the words was quite pathetic, but it was the best I could do. I mean, I guess it's not the same shade of white as that. I don't know. Either way, I was completely caught off guard to find out that we are one of the top 100 podcasts of all time, which is a crazy thing to make. Can you, like, a top 100 of all time list of podcasts, and Pablo Torre finds out, who, by the way, I'm a huge Pablo Torre stan. I think that his work on ESPN Daily speaks for itself. I was really sad to see him move on from that, because ESPN Daily took a nosedive when Pablo Torre stopped hosting it, which I think speaks to why he was included on this list. But an all-time list that includes a podcast that started like a year or two ago is crazy, in my opinion. But anyways, I felt like I had to mention that, since I very clearly was making a joke on Twitter. But yeah, Tom, do you have anything else to say before we bring this thing to a close?
Man, I'm just pumped. It's a good time to be a Houston sports fan right now. You got football, you got the Stros doing their thing, you got the Dynamo trying to do something. I mean, you know, I'm here for all of it.
I'm here for it too. I'm hopeful that Dynamo figure it out, and I was glad to be able to see them win a game, because they were not in Houston, and I guess that's the new trend, is that they just don't do well in Houston.
They've lost a lot at home,
which is wild to me, because when I first started watching the Dynamo a year or two ago, it was like hell in the shell, you know, like they couldn't lose in Houston.
Well, the weather hasn't been that way up until now. This last game, when I tell you, I went Saturday and watched the Philly Houston game, and it was so hot and humid. The water breaks were a necessity. Guys were cramping. It was very hell in the shell-ish. I think, you know, this summer has been cooler in Houston. We got a lot of rain. You know, obviously Central Texas got a lot of rain. So, you know, it hasn't been as hot, and they haven't really taken advantage of that. they've played great on the road. They've played really bad at home, and I don't know if it's because I became a full season ticket holder. I'll take blame if I need to, and get off of that. Next year I won't do
Maybe
it.
take a step back next year. Maybe go to a little less football.
But yeah.
I could never ask you to do that, Tom. As much as I believe in superstitious, and I am a little stitious. I would never ask you to not go to a Dynamo game, unless of course you don't enjoy watching them lose, in which case you should probably not go to the game. So,
well, they've got a daunting task coming up with some Leagues Cups games against some Liga MX powerhouses in Pachuca and Tigres. So I'm going to those games, but I'm not looking at it like, oh, we got this. I'm like, please, I'm cautiously optimistic. That's the phrase.
It's like, Alexa, play Frank Sinatra, High Hopes. Let's get it. All right. No. Thanks for tuning in. I'd like to take this time. I don't think we've mentioned it on the show. We have a merch store. I'm actually wearing one of the shirts right now, but it's pretty simple stuff. But I think the logo speaks for itself. I like the new logo that's revamped for this season. And so I hope you guys like it too, because I like it.
I'm an absolute slacker. I do not own it yet. I'm gonna fix that as soon as we're out of here.
Sweet. Yeah. And it comes in a few colors. There's a sweatshirt too. I got the sweatshirt upstairs, but obviously it's not sweatshirt season right now. So maybe later. I have been James Roy, and you can find me at James Roy NFL on social media. Tom is at TCTom1 on Instagram and Third Coast Tom on Twitter. This is the Bullpen. It's a Houston Texans podcast, and it is, I think, the best Houston Texans podcast, but I may be a little biased. It is the only veteran-run Texans podcast as far as I know. So thank you for supporting your troops by listening to this podcast. So, and then, yeah, stay tuned throughout training camp. Obviously, it's early on. It's been a day. There's already stuff to talk about. Here's to hoping and really, I guess, knowing that next Wednesday there's going to be a good bit to talk about. So make sure you're tuned in at around 7 o'clock. I know we were a little late today. Sorry. But it's around. That's why I put that little wavy equal sign in front of the time. I'm like, approximately 7. We'll get on when we get on. It'll be on Wednesday night. All right. Thanks for tuning in. As always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans.